Hello and welcome to the Women's Prize for Playwriting 2020 award ceremony. I'm Ellie Keel, founder and director of the prize.
And I'm Mel Kenyon, chair of the judging panel.
We're streaming to you live from Jerwood Space in London. Being artists, we couldn't resist a partially live event.
Hello, I'm Katie and I'm the Joint Artistic Director of Paynes Plough, zooming in from my garage in a place called Godmanchester, where you might not have heard of, but sits between Cambridge and London.
And hello, I'm Charlotte. I'm the other Joint Artistic Director of Paynes Plough, zooming in from a sleepy Yorkshire village. And as tonight is all about celebrating brilliant stories, we're going to start with telling you the story of where this prize came from.
Once upon a time, I, as a young independent theatre producer, was looking at the number of plays I was sent by women seeking a production and the number of plays by women produced on national stages. The numbers didn't match up, loads of plays being written and sent to me, not enough being produced. So I started to create a project to try to celebrate the institution of women's writing for the stage, to show the people who needed to hear it that women were writing big, beautiful plays. I gathered a judging panel of leaders in their field who supported my aims, but I knew that I couldn't run the project on my own.
Once upon another time, Charlotte and I were in the middle of our interview process to be the new artistic directors of Paynes Plough. We were knee-deep in chocolate and fried goods, whilst attempting to plan what a first season would look like if we got the job. We imagined what we could do, how we would platform and champion amazing women. The ideas got forming, the names kept coming, and the goal got bigger. We wanted to see more women on our national stages, and we knew that we had an opportunity to make that happen if we got the job.
And then, once upon all our times, and cut to 6 months later, with Katie and I newly in post at Paynes Plough, we're sat on a drizzly day in Edinburgh in the Summerhall courtyard, squidged on the corner of a wet bench, sandwiched between flyers counting out their soggy posters and a hen party, when we met the brilliant Ellie Keel. And she shared her idea of working with us to launch the UK's first ever Women's Prize for Playwriting. And of course, our first reaction was brilliant, but surely that's something that already exists. But then it turned out that, like sellotape, bras and self-popping toasters, it was one of those glaringly obvious but very overlooked ideas that actually didn't. And so our partnership and mission began to make this thing happen.
Our preparations were made at top speed as we wanted to launch the prize that same year. In 2.5 months, we fundraised the startup costs with dozens of handwritten letters. We formed partnerships with the 3 brilliant organisations we're still working with. We gathered as much support as we could, and we planned our launch event at the National Theatre.
We drilled down into the criteria. We wanted it to be as accessible and open as possible. The writers were asked to submit a cover letter with their play in support of where they were within their writing process. This was an amazing insight into them, their work, and what they needed to see their play realised. I distinctly remember all of us feeling blown away by the amount of submissions we received, which was 1,169, and the outstanding, talented writers that had shared their work, which in truth blew us all away. We were so proud that each of these writers had chosen this award, and we couldn't wait to read them. And thankfully, a pandemic couldn't stop that. With our amazing team of readers, we read brilliant stories in which we were transported across centuries, continents, and met bold and beautiful female characters, including space women, dogs, and invisible rats. Powerful, magical, clever, and ambitious stories, all deserving of an audience, which made shortlisting so hard.
But after 4 months, 1,169 scripts eventually became a long list of 70. And after another excruciating month of whittling this down, it became a shortlist of 35, which after an even more painful month of shortlisting further, became a finalist of 7. Yes, we really got into our lists. And so tonight, we will be announcing the winner of the UK's first ever Women's Prize for Playwriting. But we want to say that tonight is really about celebrating every single one of the 7 extraordinary plays who made this final list, because they are all revolutionary, unthinkable stories, born of great imagination, craft and vision. Each of them deserves a home and a space to be heard by audiences over and over and over again. And the writers behind them are some of the finest storytellers that we have. And finally, before we begin, we want to thank every single one of the 1,169 women who submitted their stories to this prize and that we were privileged enough to read. Because we know that putting your work out there is difficult, but together we have proved that there is no such thing as a lack of great plays by women. And I'm now going to hand over to the chair of the judging panel, Mel Kenyon.
Hello, I'm Mel, and I'd like to introduce you to our brilliant judging panel, most of whom are here with us tonight online. And in alphabetical order, we have Monica Dolan, Sarah Frankham, Ella Hickson, Kate Pakenham, Maxine Peake, Indu Rubasangam, and here with me in person is actor and director Ajwa Ando.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello. So, once upon a time, to continue the theme, 36 years ago, I did my first professional job. It was a play with all Black women, and then I went to Theatre Centre, and I was in the Women's Company, and then I went to Gay Sweatshop, and I was in a cast of all women, and then I went to the Women's Theatre Group. So there is a long tradition of women writing plays for, about, and with women. So it's very good that this prize has come along now, especially as it's also the 100th anniversary. It's the 100th centenary anniversary of the first play published by a Black woman in America, Angelina Weld Grimke, 1920. It was published and it was called Rachel. So, to the point this evening, I'm very thrilled to be here with Mel and all the fellow judges. At a time when it's so hard to imagine a theatre full and buzzing and ready to watch a new play, the imagination pays no mind to COVID, and fabulously, the work just keeps coming. So I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to read so many brilliant plays by women, new plays. With their submissions, they were invited to say a little about their pieces. And so here is a little bit of what our 7 finalists said about their plays, beginning with Blackbird Hour by Babirie Bukilwa. This is the first play in a psychological thriller trilogy that studies one woman. It is a play about choosing yourself and what that means, and how possible it is to do that in a society that profits off your self-doubt. It interrogates platonic, romantic, and self-love. It forces you to look at and take accountability for those you love and how you love them. Blackbird Hour. Colostrum by Liv Hennessy. This play is set during calving season on a West Midlands farm, Liv writes, and is about 3 people navigating their pastoral duty to the land, to the animals, and to each other. Paradise Street by Chinyorem Odimba. This is a story that takes in the shifts of both attitudes and violence. It's in a new folklore style. It confounds any ideas of the Black British presence, and it follows the hopes, dreams, and fears of many generations of Black women, starting with a girl called Gabe. Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me by Amy Trigg. This play follows Juno, who was born with spina bifida and is now clumsily navigating her 20s amid street healers, love, loneliness, and the feeling of being an unfinished project. Red Sky at Night by Eve Lee. Red Sky at Night is a play about living as an immigrant in London, capitalism, aliens, and other things that are probably going to kill us. The Virgins by Miriam Batty. In this play, over a single evening, 4 virgins and 2 non-virgins try to answer the question that has been repeatedly asked of them: what do you want? And finally, You Bury Me by Alam. You Bury Me is set in a post-Arab Spring Cairo. It's a coming-of-age story set to the backdrop of the counter-revolution, where a new military regime threatens the young protagonist's safety and well-being. It's about a city as a living, breathing body. Those are our 7 fabulous finalists in their own words.
We're now going to hand over to a video so we can hear more from the finalists.
I set up the prize with Payne's Plough to try to get more plays by women produced on national stages in the UK. In 2018, only 26% of new main stage plays in the UK were by women, and I thought that's not right, and we need to do something about that because there is so much brilliant new writing by women that deserves to have a national platform.
I had all these beautiful images in my head of women in London in the 1930s and, you know, the 1950s and the 1820s, and none of them ever looked like me. And yet I kind of instinctively knew, firstly, as black women, we go everywhere. Where there is life, you'll find black women, right? So I refused to believe the stories that I was being told, particularly in this kind of British context, that those women didn't exist.
So I never really want to write a play where I ask a question that I think is really easily answered. I kind of want to live in more of an ambiguous and complicated space. So that was definitely like what I was trying to do. I was trying to like really actively complicate in this play, in the writing of this play.
I guess I picked up the baton when I decided that there weren't enough roles out there for me. Like as a disabled actress, I wanted to think about writing some roles that were the things that I actually wanted to play, kind of three-dimensional and everything.
I love writing, I love telling stories. That's it, really. I've been lucky that I've grown up with some extraordinary storytellers in my life, and some of them are writers and some of them aren't. And I think I just really enjoy it. I just really enjoy writing plays in particular.
So I always saw theatre as words. And I think when I started to see theatre, and it's like electrifying and live, and it kind of allows society to look at itself, I wanted to write about something that I knew, and I found that the more I wrote, the more I was able to articulate my own worldview and to also understand the world around me.
I entered the prize because I don't have the luxury of creating art and people giving it a chance. That's not my reality. I don't believe the lie that is to sort of wait around, or even the lie of like working your way up towards something. Again, that's not my reality. And so I choose myself. Like I choose to open doors for myself. I choose to be the center of my own universe. I choose to not ask for permission. And so I entered the prize because I choose myself.
Yeah, I felt like there isn't always a lot of space for female playwrights to take risks creatively. And I had a lot of confidence with the group of people who were putting it together, that they would be interested in genuinely adventurous playwriting. And so I thought I'd give it a punt. Why not?
One of the best things about this prize is that you get to write a statement. I do think it's actually a strength for writers to be able to frame and give context to their work.
For me, one of my favourite things about writing is finishing that first draft, which is just like, whoa, all your heart is on the page, and then going back to the beginning and organising it all and making it make sense for someone other than me. That's one of my favourite things. So I guess I became a writer to organise my thoughts, and it's a way of processing things that, you know, I can't always process in everyday life.
lightning bolt, totally fell in love with it, no chance of ever wanting to do anything else. And now I am like, what, 12 years later from like that first time, and I am still doing it. I never gave up on doing it.
If I don't win, I really hope that the play that does win has that ambition and scale, because it's so, again, it's what are we missing in terms of women's work right now? What's the ecology of that looking like, you know? And it seems time and time again, people are happy to program us in the studio, in the smaller spaces.
What I would really like to see in the winning play is something that we've never seen before. That would be my absolute dream. But I really expect to see in the winning play something that is really challenging and adventurous, that brings voices to the stage that we don't often hear, and that will really excite audiences.
The plays on this list are like bold, big, exciting main stage shows, and I think, yeah, it's really testament to the amount of female talent that's out there.
What I would like to see in the winning play is a nuance and a story and a voice and a heart that we haven't seen before on the British stage. Yeah.
We're so pleased with the 7 finalist plays. I think they're 7 fearlessly creative pieces of work, all of which deserve to have a future life.
Hi there, I'm Philippe. I work in the literary department at Paynes Plough, and this year I coordinated the reading for the prize. I wanted to take this time to say a few thank yous. To our brilliant team of readers and judges, thank you for your unrelenting enthusiasm, kindness and care throughout the reading process, and for making the experience such a joy. Thank you to our founding sponsor PER and our partners 45 North, Concord Theatricals Limited and Sonia Friedman Productions for their support in delivering the prize this year. Thank you to all of the donors for their contributions and support that enabled the prize to happen this year as well. And a thank you to Maya Jeffers from the Royal Court, Deirdre O'Halloran from Bush Theatre, Suzanne Bell and Chloe Smith from the Bruntwood Prize, and Papa Tango for their guidance and support. I'm going to pass you back over to Ellie.
We'd also like to thank the many individual donors who've supported in this, our first year. In particular, I'd like to extend the warmest of thanks to Sir Ian McKellen, who made the Women's Prize for Playwriting a particularly generous grant from the proceeds of his 80th birthday celebration show. This grant has really helped to sustain and support us and gave us the courage to be brave and adventurous in how we set out and drove the prize in its inaugural year. Thank you again, Sir Ian. Thank you to Gail McManus at PER People. Gail immediately recognised the value of this award when I first mentioned it to her as the seed of an idea, thereafter giving advice and helping to fund the setting up of the prize. I found this support at an early stage of the evolution of the idea of the Women's Prize for Playwriting, both reassuring and inspiring. I would also like to acknowledge and thank Kate Moss, who is the founder-director of the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm extremely grateful to Kate for taking the time to give me the most constructive of advice and warmest of encouragement this year. Thank you to our judges for your time, commitment, expertise and enthusiasm for this new prize. I'd like to thank my team, Gabrielle Ledbetter and Saxon Mudge. I cannot finish my list of thank yous without saying special thanks to Philippe Cato from Paynes Plough. Philippe designed and coordinated with style, efficiency and diligence above and beyond the call of duty, our reading team, submissions and reading processes that allowed us to whittle down the fabulously large number of entries to first the long list, then the short list, and now finalists. We're very grateful to him, so thank you, Philippe. Now for the bit you've all been waiting for. I'm going to hand over to Mel so she can tell you the outcome of this year's prize.
You see, I'm wringing my hands like some old washerwoman. That's because I'm actually quite nervous. I'm going to take you back to the beginning, because when Ellie asked me if I would chair the Women's Prize, I was delighted, not because I feel the need for positive discrimination per se, but for over 30 years, I've kind of borne witness in a world in which men have habitually judged the worth of both male and female playwrights, and invariably have read women's plays with a level of unconscious bias, which meant that the work really wasn't seen and understood. And then when I learned who my fellow panelists were, I was even more delighted, because I was dying to see what each of us brought to the plays, because we had very different experiences, and how we might handle the judging process. After all, when you look at that list, there are a lot of tough women out there. And I have to say that we handled the process very well. And I've never had a happier or more constructive judicial experience. It wasn't simple. The short list of plays are in fact amazing. And it was the best list of shortlisted plays I have ever read. The debate was long and nuanced, but equitable, and views were eloquently expressed, but they were also heard. In the end, I think everyone agreed with the outcome. But I do want to say, before we announce the winners, that every single play that we read was worthy of serious consideration. They were beautifully written, deeply felt, and impactful. They were also all very, very different. In the end, the two final winners, and yes, there are two winners, and they're not joint winners, because that's the way the ladies rock, were chosen not only for the quality of the writing, but for the spirit in which the plays were written, and for the courage and the resilience of the playwrights. So without much ado, and with very great pride, I would like to announce that the winners are Arlem for her tender and elegant and eye-opening play, You Bury Me, and Amy Trigg for the beautiful, brave, and very, very funny Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me. Congratulations.
We're now going to hear a short speech, I think, from Amy.
Hello, thank you so much. It's such an honour to win this award, and quite a shock. Writing this play and sending it off into the big wide world was terrifying, but I'm so grateful to the Women's Prize for Playwriting for all of their support. This evening is, of course, the final celebration, but I feel like we've been celebrating ever since the long list was announced all those months ago, and that's something that I think a lot of us needed this year. So firstly, thank you to everyone at Ellie Keel Productions, Payne's Plough, Sonia Friedman Productions, 45 North, Concord Theatricals, and everyone else who's been involved in supporting this award. You're all rock stars. Thank you to the judging panel and everyone else who's read our scripts during this process. I'm actually a bit jealous that you got to read them all. Shout out to all the other writers. I've stalked you all on Twitter and I think you're all sensational. I really hope that we can all meet one day in person and put the world to rights. Thank you to my wonderful friends who listened to very early drafts of this play, especially Lee Tony, who spent far too long on Zoom listening to my voice earlier this year. I'm sorry, Lee. And lastly, thank you to my mum and dad for their everlasting love and support. I'm so lucky to have you in my corner. Right, I'm going to go and have a lie down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. We're now going to go to Arlem. We're going to hear the voice of Arlem.
Hello. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say I'm really, really nervous. I'm actually very inarticulate when I'm speaking live. So yeah, this has never happened to me. I've never had to give a speech. So I'm just going to read what I wrote, which is also very inarticulate, but I'll just do it. I feel totally speechless. I don't know what to say other than thank you. I've never seen any of my plays fully realized on a stage, so I can't even cope with the thought that it actually might happen now. This play and its characters mean a lot to me, and I cannot describe how happy I am that there are people who want the story to be told. Thank you to every single person who made the Women's Prize for Playwriting happen. Thank you for all the readers and the panel. It's been such a considerate and caring process, and I cannot wait to see all the wonderful plays and stories that this prize will nurture. Thanks.
We're now going to hear an extract from both finalist plays, starting with Amy reading an extract from her own play, Reasons You Shouldn't Love Me.
Mel once played Jesus in our school production of Jesus Christ Superstar. I was in enthusiastic ensemble. At one point, the entire cast went to Jesus Mel to be healed. Boys pretending to be blind threw down their canes and kissed Mel's feet whilst everyone else lost their limps. Our teacher suggested that I left the stage at this point. And so I was not healed by Jesus that day. Months later, Mel and I were on our way home from school when a group of religious people stopped us. I'm still not sure which church they were a part of, but they were very nice. They offered to heal me. And I wasn't in a rush, so I was like, sure. Suddenly, there were hands very respectfully placed on my body. They started mumbling, then chanting, and then speaking in unison. I wondered if they rehearsed with a script or if it was more of a devised project. I looked over at Mel, who just sort of stared at me. A few minutes later, I was told by a younger man in the group to get up and walk. Bit of background, I could walk a little bit when I was younger. It wasn't until I was 8 that I started using a wheelchair full time. And it was a few years after that when walking became a total thing of the past. So when I was sat in that car park being healed by strangers, I was wearing leg splints and could still manage a few steps. The question is, should I have gone into more detail about my diagnosis before the prayer session? Not one to disappoint, I stood and stumbled a few meters across the car park before returning to my chair. My new friends cheered and applauded, and I tried to explain about my splints, but it was no good, I'd gone too far. They all shook my hand and I thanked them and took a leaflet for their church. After they'd gone, Mel turned to me. So, you gonna walk home then?
And we're now going to hear from You Bury Me by Arlem, read by Annie Siddons.
I don't know how these things start. Maybe it was the first time he saw her in his first engineering class. Or maybe it was the moment that she realized that the God they talked about in school wasn't quite the God she talked to at night. Maybe it was the first time a bored policeman asked for his ID. I don't know. I don't know how you end up falling in love with the right kind of wrong person. Maybe it's the place. Yeah, that sounds right. This story starts with a place. No, a city. A city called Cairo. Life in this city goes on. No matter how much tragedy or misery or joy or love or death or protest or oppression or tension or laughter or surprise or debate or division or violence or passion or compassion or mercy or victory or hope there is or isn't. Maya in Zamalek writes an imaginary travel diary of all the places she'll never see. Today, she went to Edinburgh for the theatre festival and to Osaka for cherry blossom season. Alia Googles countries that require no visas for Egyptians. Benin, Visa free up to 90 days. Malaysia, 90 days. Ecuador, 90 days. Jordan, 1 month. Mauritius, 90 days. Guinea, Northern Cyprus. Tamar thinks about Alia and smokes. His sister Lena thinks she wants to chop her hair off. Like a boy, her mother will say. Her mother won't like it. She, Lena, thinks about Maya. She thinks about Paris. She thinks about going to Paris with Maya. Osman posts his article under a pseudonym. There must be a way to fight this. There must be a way to protect his loved ones. There must be a way to protect himself. Rafiq tries to walk home. They won't let him. In this city.
Thank you so much, Annie and Amy. And I also wanted to say thank you to all the people joining us on YouTube and all your fantastically generous, happy comments. It's really great to see so many people getting involved. I'm going to hand over to Katie now.
Well, I just wanted to say a massive thank you all for joining us this evening, and thank you so much to Mel and Adjoa for hosting this evening ceremony. And it was just been so amazing to hear the winning extracts from both plays, and congratulations to everyone again on the shortlist, and of course to our wonderful winners. I'm going to hand back to you now, Ellie, to share some very exciting news for next year.
Thank you. Yes, we're delighted to announce tonight that the Women's Prize for Playwriting will return in 2021. It's been such a great ride this year. Thank you. And we can't wait to read more plays and serve more writers next year.
So all that remains to say is thank you for joining us again. We hope you enjoyed the ceremony and have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.